Sadie and Peyton had been inseparable since middle school. Their friendship was perplexing to their teachers. Peyton, a stunning and excellent student, and Sadie, who was considered plain, were an unlikely duo. Yet, they remained friends. Peyton even helped Sadie improve academically to the point where they both gained admission to the local institute. They even performed together in the student theater, albeit in different roles. Peyton played the coveted princesses and countesses, while Sadie took on smaller, less noticeable parts. Nevertheless, Sadie never complained, emphasizing that the most important thing was that they were acting alongside each other. Peyton, reassured, didn't concern herself over her friend's position. It was during their time in the theater that Peyton and Colton crossed paths. He was a charming man with an impressive physique, and he also landed the lead role frequently opposite Peyton, to the point where they unknowingly found themselves attracted to each other. Two starry-eyed romantics, seemingly destined for each other, felt an effortless and harmonious bond. They would spend hours strolling the city streets, discussing their roles and scripts, neglecting their studies in the process. While Peyton had a natural knack for academics, she still found enough strength to help both Colton and Sadie. Immediately after their graduation, Colton and Peyton tied the knot. Their wedding was joyous, with their castmates wholeheartedly congratulating the newlyweds. Everyone believed they were meant for each other, a beautiful and talented couple who were adored by all. Even Colton's admirers recognized that he couldn't have found a more perfect wife than Peyton. However, amidst the celebration, one girl quietly observed the young couple, her gaze filled with melancholy, refraining from joining the others in exclaiming bitter. Peyton and Colton took up residence in his family's home after his father passed away 5 years prior, with his mother relocating to Tver to stay with her oldest son. Initially, their life together was harmonious, supported by their families. However, the situation took a turn once Colton was compelled to find a job to sustain himself and Peyton, who was expecting their first child. It was then that Peyton realized how sluggish her husband was. Colton wasn't just looking for any job. He desired a position that required minimal effort, yet offered a salary comparable to a high-ranking official. At home, he staunchly refused to assist with domestic chores, declaring them inappropriate for a man. Peyton found herself burdened with both earning a living and managing the household tasks alone. Thankfully, her friend Sadie was a constant source of support, for which Peyton was immensely grateful. 9 months later, Peyton gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Eva, who was serene and delightful. When out for strolls, Peyton often had to shield the carriage with a cover because passers-by would stop to coo over Eva so enthusiastically that Peyton feared the evil eye. Unfortunately, it was Peyton herself, not her daughter, who would soon face adversity. When Eva reached the tender age of 6 months, Claire accompanied her to the usual visit at the pediatric clinic. The return journey, though not long, encountered an unexpectedly vigorous gust of wind that caused a sturdy branch to snap from the towering tree that Claire strolled beneath with her pram. Unluckily, the branch descended upon her head with force. Claire regained consciousness within the hospital walls, where she caught sight of her dear friend Sadie by her side. Struggling to articulate, Claire whispered in a feeble tone, "Where is Eva?" Sadie hastened to assure her, "Fret not, darling. Your little one is unharmed and safely ensconced at home with Colton. Your mother is keeping watch over her. Soon, though, we'll make the switch, and she will come to be by your side." She is consumed with worry. The ordeal even triggered a heart attack. But fret not, dear friend, for you mustn't allow unnecessary anxiety. The doctor has prescribed an operation, for the bone has penetrated your brain, posing peril. Concerning your precious daughter, I will attend to her needs. I intend to take leave from work and devote myself to her care. Your mother, unfortunately, lacks the strength, but I possess the resolute determination to handle all responsibilities at home and provide for Eva's well-being. Claire could only express her gratitude through a tender blink and weakly clasping her friend's hand. The doctor had informed Colton and Sadie that the chances of a successful outcome from the procedure were slim. A substantial piece of the skull had been driven into the brain, and the repercussions were unpredictable. They had the option of calling in a seasoned surgeon from Moscow, which would come at a high cost, or relying on the local neurosurgeons. Colton chose to keep this information from Claire's mother, thinking it best not to cause her undue stress, and ultimately decided to proceed with the local expert, given their financial constraints. "You have a lovely name," came a soothing male voice that reached Claire's ears, prompting her to struggle to open her eyes. "I'm the surgeon who will be performing your operation. Don't fret. I will do everything in my power to ensure you get back to your loved ones," he assured her. A tall, relatively young man stood near Claire, inspiring a glimmer of hope. Handsome, but why so young? He lacks experience, Claire pondered and fainted. Braden gazed at the young woman and marveled at her beauty. It was quite unexpected that a sly character like Colton ended up with such a stunning wife. The youthful, untalented doctor didn't particularly care for Colton. Braden controlled himself, reminding himself, "Not what you're thinking. Don't gaze at her for too long or unintentionally fall in love. You can't perform surgery while being infatuated. No, you must heal her busted nose, mate. Otherwise, this girl will haunt you forever," he sighed. "Regardless, I'll remember her for the rest of my life, no matter what." The procedure was a triumph. Braden achieved what seemed nearly unfeasible, preserving the life of this delightful young woman. Now, she faced a lengthy period of convalescence. Above all, she required affection and attentive care. Braden harbored doubts about whether Claire's spouse was up to the task, especially after overhearing him in the hospital passageway, speaking on his phone. "Look, they've done the surgery gratis. As if my payments were insignificant, just imagine. She thinks she's royalty now." Braden felt a pang in his heart. How could he speak of Claire in such a manner? Yet, as her spouse, his hands were tied. 3 weeks on, Claire was discharged to continue her recovery at home. Still, she was instructed not to leave her bed or exert herself in any way. Sadie arranged a peaceful setup for her in a secluded room. Claire couldn't help but notice how Sadie seemed to take charge effortlessly around the house, skillfully handling domestic duties, caring for the child, and even directing Colton. Claire deeply appreciated her friend's help, yet something nagged at her. Particularly unsettling was how, after tending to Claire and settling Eva in for the night, Sadie and Colton would engage in hushed, seemingly secretive conversations in a different part of the house. Her husband seldom visited her room, typically preoccupied with other matters. After a whole week had passed, Peyton could no longer bear it and decided to confront her friend directly. "Hey, come on. Do you and Colton sleep together?" The words spilled out of her mouth, and Sadie widened her eyes in surprise before quickly averting them downwards, silent as a mouse. "But how could you?" Peyton exclaimed bitterly. "You didn't even wait for me to die, did you?" In a sudden outburst, Sadie's words came rushing out. "I've done so much for you, and yet you're still the one who's more attractive and clever. Even your name sounds better than mine. And your husband? He's the most handsome man I've ever seen. Maybe, just maybe, I loved him before you did. I won't rest until he realizes his potential. He's such a sensitive, creative soul. And guess what? I'm pregnant. Yes, that's right. Expecting a baby. A son, to be specific." Claire, utterly amazed, listened to her friend's words and finally saw the darkness that had been hiding within her for all these years. Sadie and Colton seemed like such a perfect couple, but maybe it wasn't such a bad thing that everything had come to light. Yet, Claire couldn't respond to Sadie's astonishing revelations. The shock overwhelmed her, and she lost consciousness on the spot. "Naturally, I'm thrilled to have you here, Peyton. But wouldn't it be more ideal to catch up in a different setting?" Claire's eyes slowly fluttered open, revealing the cold, pastel walls of the hospital room. Standing before her was Braden, the doctor who had become a cherished and intimate figure in her life. He gazed at her with such a tender, compassionate look that she felt a tinge of embarrassment. Inexplicably, she decided to confide in him and pour out her heart. She had a strange intuition that this man would comprehend her deeply. When she observed his smile, she was initially taken aback, but he took her hand and softly murmured, "I assure you, Claire, you will undoubtedly find happiness." 2 years later, two couples found themselves in the park. Sadie was pushing a baby boy in a summer stroller, accompanied by Colton, who appeared disheveled and hungover. Walking beside them was Braden, providing steady support beneath the arm of the radiant Claire. Her belly noticeably rounded. She firmly clasped the hand of little Eva. Claire wore a delighted, luminous grin and merely acknowledged her former friend with a quick nod. The friend's envy was even more palpable as they glanced her way.